Greetings and welcome to our valued viewers. May the love, grace, and peace of God be your portion. We want to take a look at family on this program. In our fellowship, we have set aside the month of March every year to honor family. We want you to know we are doing the same for you because we consider you as part of our family. It was God who created the family in the Garden of Eden in the book of Genesis. That is where the blueprint is laid out for all mankind to follow. God gave us specific instructions to both the man and woman. That is a type of family that God ordained. Every other type is man-made. Family is important. Why? Because they set the stage for future relationships. Being an essential source of affection and encouragement. Teach values. Quality time with family is linked to better academic performance. And so, we are proud and happy to spend this quality time with you. We want you to understand that family was ordained by God, not the state, not the church. And so families are very, very important. We want you to stay tuned with us as we continue and go deeper with this. God bless you. God bless beautiful Guyana. Thank you again, and we say a hearty welcome.
This evening, we want to continue our discussion we started last week. We focused particularly on the concept of empathy. And I think we made mention of the fact that empathy has to do with putting yourself in one's position to feel how they feel, to understand what they're experiencing. And therefore, if we're able to empathize, it behoves the fact that we will respond and we will behave differently because, there's a saying, do unto others as you would like others do unto you. And so when you begin to understand how people feel as a result of your actions, obviously that kind of posture will cause one to reflect and to examine his or her behavior in relation to conduct. I think it was just last week, we heard about one person killed three persons one time on the road. Three persons. Imagine that in an instant. One driver ran in, plowed his car into three persons, died instantly on the road because of that kind of careless kind of behavior, that careless posture. Why would you want to be using your vehicle like a weapon? You driving carelessly and so on. And so what happens as a result of that, or what would have happened? You have a number of families now, they would have lost a father, a brother, a cousin, persons who may have been able to contribute to the family. And so people are now grieving. Let us think about if it was you or me behaving in that way, how we would have felt if our relatives would have died. And therefore, if we are talking about a country developing our country with the kind of human potential and building capacity, we have to live. We have to have people living, especially men. And so we want to continue this discussion this evening as to the importance, the significance of empathizing. We're called to be like Jesus. When Jesus looked at the troubles people had, he didn't add more troubles to them. What he did was found ways and means to alleviate, if not to eradicate altogether, the issues people are experiencing. So if we think like that, the world would be in a much better place, even as we consider this period, family month, as we are going through. Gentlemen.
The last time we were in the studio, we were reflecting on a Ministry of Education initiative to find the children who seemingly fell off the map during the the pandemic. And so they went about searching for and trying to locate those children. We want to say that that was a commendable gesture. At the same time, as we think about parenting, it's a parent's worst nightmare to release and to send your child or children in the morning with a kiss, with a hug, with a wonderful greeting. And in the evening, the time when you expect them to come home, return, they're not there. During Family Month, we kind of not only address parents, but we address children. We address the community. We want you to know that this is a discussion that should take place every week, every weekend, however often, because each member of the family is valued, whether you live in a big house or a small house, whether you have university degrees or you're just alive. Each child, our most precious resource. When we think about the next generation, we're thinking about our children. And so, please, parents, we are not begging, but we are imploring you to be a little bit more involved in their lives, because when we don't see them in the evening, I don't know what kind of weight is put upon our heart. So let's see, and not just parents, but the community. Let us create the safety nets that we'll see them, we can counsel them, we can send them home. But this has got to be all parents, not just over your biological children, but children that you see wandering around the place.
You know, Bishop, I'm happy you mentioned that, and as we're discussing family. We're talking about empathy. We're discussing how one should behave according to our manual for living, the Bible. You know, and we're sharing and we're encouraging our citizens, Guyanese first, and of course the world, because the world will also be looking at our program. So as we discuss family, I want to give it a little bit, take a little bit of slant as well. And of course, bring an example from our manual for living, the Bible. You know, there was this woman of the night, you know, there was an account in the Bible, the woman of the night, you know, woman of the world in Joshua chapter 2. You know, her name was Rahab, you know, and she was a part of a family as well. And as the account go, she hid some men from the king, you know, and the king was sent out his horsemen to look for them. But she was faithful and she understood her purpose and she fulfilled her purpose. She hid the men. But that's not what I want us to discuss or hear. The message that I would like to share with us is that in her hiding of these men, she understood what she was doing. And then she made a bargain with these men. Since I have hidden you from the king and your lives are spared, I would like you, when you enter the city, to spare not just my life, but the life of my family. This was a woman of the night. This profession, as we all know to this day, is looked down upon, is frowned upon, you know? So, but when she did this good deed, she understood what she was getting herself involved in. So she made a deal. When you come to take this city, and I know your God will give you this city, spare my life and the life of my family. Now, in our context, it makes you wonder, at least I would wonder, would they have done that for her, looking down at her career, looking down at what she is about? This is the empathy that we're talking about, where we put ourselves in the other one's shoes. We understand how they feel, we understand how they operate, and then we're moved by compassion to act, to do something. So the destruction was coming of the city, and Rahab, a woman of the world, a woman of a career that is not not welcoming, not becoming of a young woman. But at that time, she had the understanding to ask not just for help for her, but for entire family, that their lives be spared. And the rest, as we know, is in the account, and the rest is history. That's the empathy we're looking for. Put yourselves in the other one's shoes, and just not just only that, but act to help. Driving, in playing, in whatever we do, let us get to that position where we move to do something.
You know, we have been
I
very often times being familiar with sympathy, and lots of what we do many times, it could be classified as sympathy. One may ask, what is sympathy? But they say sympathy involves understanding from your own perspective, having an understanding from your own perspective. Empathy, on the other hand, that I heard you mention, Pastor Kurt, it involves putting yourself in the other person's shoe. I repeat, putting yourself in the other person's shoe and understand why they may be having these kinds of particular feelings, or why they are having these kinds of difficulties. You become aware of the root cause of the person's feelings, the root cause of their problems, and you're in a better position, not just to understand, but to help. You know, as I read that definition, it brings me back to a portion of scripture. I think Dr. Hudson made reference to it when he introduced this program in Matthew chapter 9. It's Matthew 9:36. But let me read 35, and then I'll come to 36 for emphasis purposes. Then Jesus went about all the cities and the villages, teaching in the synagogues, preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every sick and every disease among the people. Here, verse 36. But when he saw the multitude, he was moved with compassion for them, because they were weary, they were scattered, they were like sheep having no shepherd. Inasmuch as Jesus was actively doing all these things in ministry, as he went among the people, his empathy came and kicked in. He felt for them because he put himself in their shoe. Real effective ministry comes when you and I can feel what the people feel. And I say to mommies, daddies, to families, many times we are so critical. We live in a highly critical environment. We find we're so negative. We always see all the bad, nothing good. But if we were to change the shoe we're wearing, I'm very sure our comments are going to be different. And we will be in a better position to help each other. And I always say, we are always stronger together than apart.
Reverend Desano, you know, empathy, I want to shift it a bit from putting oneself in the other person's shoes. I want to put it in one's belly as such. And I want to refer to a story. I want to move from shoes to belly. Because when we talk about children, sometimes children don't do well at school simply because they don't have something to eat or something proper to eat. Several years ago, a woman who was very observant noticed a child eating from a lunch kit. The child was on his way to school, and the lunch kit presupposes that you would have had breakfast and you will enter the lunch kit at lunchtime. So this woman saw what happened, and she was moved by compassion
and she related the story to a shepherd of the flock. And to make a long story short, that shepherd was moved by compassion, and it ushered in the beginning of a feeding program for children. Because of the pandemic, the feeding program that I'm referring to has been put on hold. But prior to the pandemic, twice a week, 3 schools in the neighborhood, I'm referring here to First Assembly of God Church, Generation Next. 3 schools in the neighborhood benefited from sumptuous hot meal twice a week. The point I'm making here is that when we see something, we see something. Compassion must move us to do something about it, not simply talk about it, not sympathize, but to do something. And so I was not the originator of the plan, but I want to put it in perspective and encourage those who are listening to this program. You may not be able to start a massive feeding program, but you might be able to start, for example, a soup kitchen, or you might be able to do something to help children in the neighborhood. And so my encouragement to us is that if you see something and there's a way that you can help as an individual, you may not be able to help as an individual, but you can find like-minded citizens in your community, in your neighborhood, to do something to help the children of Guyana.
When you see something, do something. I like that, Dr. Lee. That has been something that has been with me ever since I came across a quotation by a gentleman, a Lutheran minister in Germany named Martin Niemöller. I think that was his name. He's a theologian and Lutheran minister who was around during the Second World War. He, I believe, also took part in the First World War, and he gained some amount of, later on gained some sympathy for what was then being formed, the Nazi Party. So he therefore subscribed to some of Adolf Hitler's theologies. And when the war was going on, he saw several things and he didn't say anything. And there's a quotation that is attributed to him, which there are many versions of it, but it's one of them that goes, they came for the socialist and I said nothing because I wasn't a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists. And I said nothing because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews and I said nothing because I wasn't a Jew. And then they came for me and there was no one left to say anything. Now, those words have impacted my life tremendously because what they say is that when you see things going wrong, I mean, in Guyanese context, well, it's not me, it's not, nothing happening to me, but someday it will be your turn, today for me, tomorrow for you. And we must react. As my brothers before me have been talking, it's important for us to feel what is going on. We're all human. We can put ourselves into that person's shoes and imagine how we would feel if that were done to us. Very often, sometimes though, we want to be indifferent because oftentimes of selfishness. It may affect us. It may cause us, if I have to reach out and help, it may mean that I have to eat a little less this month. But what about that person who's not eating at all? If I speak out, the neighbor might not like me anymore, and that neighbor does me lots of good favors, and I will lose that favor. We're often thinking about ourselves. But you know what? Eventually, your turn will come. Even if it's not you directly, it may be somebody who's related to you, and it will still impact you. And then you can bawl and say, why nobody didn't do anything? When we see people driving recklessly on the roads or whatever, and we know it's our friend, do we just say, oh, it doesn't matter to me, I'm not in the car? Are you gonna wait for that friend to knock down your friend who's standing at the side of the road? Are you going to wait for that friend to run over that relative of yours who might have been crossing on the pedestrian crossing, or crash into the person as they were riding their cycle in the corner of the road? These things happen, but we often are just indifferent. So I speak especially to those who know people who do things that are injurious to their fellow man, and those who have the power to influence legislation. Please, not because you have not yet been touched. Do not wait until you're touched. Do something now, please.
Well, these are grievous matters as we crisscross between these things that happen to us as humans. And we're thinking about children who go to school hungry. If I can tweak that story a little, when the lunch kit fell, the lunch kit was empty. When it fell, it opened on the road. That is what that woman observed, that the child was going to school and the lunch kit was an ornament. And when it fell, she observed that there was nothing in it. And that's, that is tragic. I could hardly watch the news on the war currently. I can't look at it very long because it saddens my heart to see what's happening, especially to children, innocent people, old people. But we don't have to go so far. How do we use this road? The media, whether it be print and electronic, when Dr. Olson said reckless and so on, that's how the media is putting it, telling us, what is the print media or electronic media? This is how these drivers have been driving. We are making an appeal to you, to all of us. Please, let's return value to life. And when we have this machine to drive, this thing called a motor vehicle, whether it be a car or SUV, under our watch, under our control, I pray that it will never be turned into a weapon. So we have to be careful. We have to be super careful as we use the road and trust. All of us have to appeal. We must all appeal to our community. Please be careful on the road. Let us go back and I mean, I read one very prominent guy and he said, it is for this reason he has stopped driving 21 years. According to the media, he said that he has stopped driving because of the way how people treat the roadway. Let's be careful. Let's value life again. And if we could help, that's what we're saying, help. And we are saying, in the case of parents, let's see how we could extend love again to our offspring.
We spoke a lot so far about being in someone else's shoes. Bishop, I don't know if you could remember, you spoke to us about a woman that you were counseling, pretty much marriage counseling, and she said to you, Pastor, you ever wear a tight shoe? I won't forget that. you know, the, have you ever felt this way before? And the imagery was very, very compelling. So I just thought about that in terms of feeling and empathy. A lot of times we speak, but we have no understanding of a lot of times of where people might be. In terms of empathy, Jesus himself set the example. Um, John 1:14, and the word became flesh and moved into our neighborhood. You know, he did that to restore our relationship with God.
And if he did not do that, there's no way that we could have mended that relationship on our own. So he had to intervene. And I get the sense that he is setting a model for us, saying, if we don't reach people, guess what? They will be lost. If we don't reach out, if we don't try as far as possible, maybe you're the only person in the context that you're in that could actually bring help, just like our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And so we appeal to each and every one of us. Feel and do. Let it move from the cognitive to the affective to the psychomotor.
Like that, Reverend Semple, I remember, I think it is Van Dyke and Rock in the book Geography of Grace, as you mentioned Jesus, because geography is important in this thing. Could you imagine Jesus already in an exalted position, and yet he looked down upon earth and came here, as you talked about, moved into the neighborhood. So when it comes to grace, geography matters, and I think sometimes we could be satisfied with our own comfort zone and not concerned about what is happening around us. As like, or you made mention, sometimes when you refuse to pay attention to what is happening around you, it might just be a matter of time before what is happening around you and you pay note and comes very close to you or at you. And so we are really called as human beings to show the kind of concern that, of persons, what may be happening around them, families, relationships, and all of these things. Because if we're talking about the grace of God, geography matters.
Well, we could never conclude a program like this. We don't have sufficient time to do so. But we want to encourage you, value the person next to you, pay more attention to those around you, and don't only watch over your children. Yes, watch over your neighbor's child also. And not only your children, all of us must use the road as passengers, as drivers, whatever the case might be. Let us be careful. From the set of choices, God bless you.
We thank you for joining us on Choices today. Remember, you can join us at First Assembly, LNP Durban Street, Workmanville, Georgetown, Guyana, for any of our special services. I'm Celicia on behalf of the set, reminding you that your whole life is the sum of your choices. God bless you.